Today we're going to replace the fuel lift pump of the Yanmar engine. Locate the fuel shuttle valve and turn it 90 degrees to the fuel line in order to shuttle the fuel to the fuel lift pump. Locate the fuel lift pump on the starboard side of the engine and identify the different parts involved. Identify the fuel line coming into the fuel lift pump and the pipe clamp holding it to the fuel pump. Identify the outlet of the fuel pump going to a stainless steel tube. Remove the bolt that holds the fuel connection to the stainless steel tube to the fuel pump. Pull the manual fuel lift lever down, access the bolt and remove the bolt behind it. Identify the bolt on the other side of the fuel lift pump and remove that bolt as well. You will now be able to ease the fuel lift pump away from the engine and place all the items on a oil rag. Use a paper towel to dab up any oil leaking from the open hole now where the fuel pump has been removed. Use a Stanley knife to remove any excess gasket, making sure not to damage the surface. Now to remove the fuel intake connection to the fuel lift pump, remove the bolt holding the connection in place. You will need either a socket or a spanner to do this of the correct size. Use some fresh diesel and a brush to clean all the components. Apply thread tape to the bolts of the inlets and outlets. Prepare the new fuel lift pump and its gasket ready to install. Apply some grease to both sides of the gasket to help seal it and also make it easier to remove at some later stage. Reinstall the fuel pump, making sure not to damage the gasket, and tighten both of the bolts holding it in place. Reinstall both the intake and outtake fuel lines to the fuel lift pump. Tighten the pipe clamp securely so there's no fuel leak. Place the fuel cutoff valve in line with the fuel line to allow fuel to come to the fuel lift pump. Either use the manual fuel lift pump lever or the electric pump to push fuel through the system. Identify the fuel filter and the bleed screws on top of the fuel filter. Loosen the air bleed screw and keep pumping the fuel until all the air is out of the fuel line and there are no air bubbles left coming out. Then secure the screw, closing off the bleed. Identify the injectors of the engine. Using the correct size spanner, loosen the fuel line going to the injectors about half a turn. Do the same with the other injector. Loosen the fuel line holding that half a turn. Place some paper towels underneath each of the fuel lines to monitor that the fuel is coming out. While holding both compression valve levers open, get someone to turn over the engine a number of times while you watch to see the fuel come out of the fuel lines at the injectors. Allow sufficient fuel to come out of the fuel lines to ensure there are no more air bubbles left in the fuel line. Retighten the fuel line nuts connecting to the injector. Now start the engine as per normal, and you may get a few splutterings, but you should get it going. And this concludes the replacement of the fuel lift pump.